Hello everyone, it's Gloria and welcome to my video book, Gloria, the Story of a Woman. If someone had told me that meeting this guy at the Sandman that night would turn into a wild 38-year roller coaster ride, I wouldn't have laughed in their face. But life doesn't care what you think that you're ready for. It just hands you the ticket to the bus ride and dares you to hang on. And honey, hang on I did. Okay, so this was December the 13th that I met my future husband, Stoney. As I said, I took him home to the base, was really leery about doing that, but he was a perfect gentleman and asked for my phone number, which I gave to him, but I told him, I said, listen, I live with a lady, I rent a room from her, and she's older, she doesn't like phone calls at all hours of the night, and all of that stuff, and we cannot sit on the phone for hours and talk. He said, don't worry. He said, I won't do anything, I won't bother her. So I didn't think anything about it. I left the base, went home, went to sleep, and thought that was it. Because it wasn't like, fireworks going off and all of that. It wasn't that night. The next day, the phone rang, and Miss Barker came in and said, Gloria, you've got a phone call from a young man. I said, oh my gosh. Go to the phone. It is him. It is the airman call himself Stoney because they go by their last name. Stone. And he asked me if I wanted to go to a movie. And I said, well, that would be nice. And then he said to me, but I don't have a car. You're going to have to pick me up. And that kind of like rang a bell. Why don't this guy have a car? But then again, a lot of airmen did not have cars, believe it or not. They were young guys and, just leaving home, and they weren't paid a big amount of money. So a lot of them did not have cars, and they hitch rides. So I went and picked him up. And we went to a movie, very gentlemanly, he looked very nice, dressed very, very nice. And we had a really good time, and I took him back to the base, and once again, didn't think much about it. Well, we started dating, and we became a twosome, believe it or not. I was very shocked. And you gotta understand something. I was so naive, I knew nothing. I grew up in the 40s and 50s when nothing was talked about. You didn't even say the word pregnant around children. I Love Lucy slept in twin beds, her and Desi. They did not even mention the name or the word pregnant on her show, and she was one of the first ones to be pregnant on TV. So this were the times, and as I said, I was extremely naive. I didn't know anything. I just kept hearing what they had always told me about airmen. Oh, they're bad. You don't want to date them. But I liked this guy. I really liked him. And we would go over to the Sandman because it was about the only place there in town that anything to do. Or we'd go to a movie, or we'd just ride around, whatever. We'd ride into Macon and back, and there was a couple of places in Macon that we would go to. And then one night we are over at the Sandman, and I noticed that he was acting really, really weird. He was just very strange, distant, almost like he didn't want to be there. And he kept going around these tables where these women were sitting. And I'm like, I really don't need this because I've got my own car. You don't have a car. I can leave, so I'm not going to put up with this. So he finally came back to the table, and he's standing there, and I looked up at him and I said, listen, if you got something to say to me, say it now. Let's get it on the table because I can leave, and that's fine with me. Because I did not want to be disrespected by him going around and talking to other women. And he's standing there, and he looked down at me with this look in his eyes that was not of love, it was like anger in a way, and he looked down at me and he said, I'm in love with you, God damn it, and I don't want to be. Hello. Okay, you don't have to be. Nobody's got a gun at your head. Nobody's making you do anything. And I said, fine. I said, I'm going to leave. And he sat down in the chair and he took my hand and he said to me, he said, no, I don't want you to leave. He said, I want to know, will you marry me? Okay, I met him December the 13th. This was right after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's, that this was going on. And we got married on April the 22nd. December, January, February, March, 4 months and a few days, and we were married. And we were married for 38 years until he died in 1992. Wild and crazy times in between. And I can't describe our relationship. The only thing that I know and that I can tell you is that I was not literally taught how to be a good wife, a nurturing, loving wife, and he certainly was not taught how to be a good, loving, nurturing husband. His father was a distant father. He was very rough. He would chase him and hit him with a fishing pole, and that's the reason he went into service, was to get away from his home. I left my home to get away from my home. So you've got two people there that are very dysfunctional, that has no idea how to nurture and love one another, and yet we loved each other. And how do you explain something like that? He was a very good father, but he had no idea how to be a mother, and I had no idea how to be a wife because of the environment that I grew up in. I grew up in arguing, so of course when you grow up in arguing, when you get into your own home, you're going to be arguing, and that's what you're taught. You're not taught by what somebody tells you. You're taught by what you see, and that's all that I saw, was distrust and arguing and fighting and condemning and putting down. It was crazy. And he went through the same. He had a wonderful mother. He had 3 sisters and a little brother who was 9 years old when I met him. And his mother had taken care of the family. She'd made the living. The father pretty much went out and drank. That's all he did, was go fishing and drink. And even up until the time that I knew him, until the time he died, that was his life, going out fishing and drinking. And very brusque man. Now, my husband wasn't a brusque man. He was a good guy. Everybody loved him. He just didn't know how to be a husband. So we had, in that beginning time, he was a playboy. I can tell you that right now. The women loved him. I mean, he was absolutely gorgeous. He really was. And I would sit and say to, what does he see in me? I was very insecure. I did not think that I had any looks. I did not think that I had any brains, because I had been told all of my life that negativity. And I believed him. I believed what they said. So I'm saying to myself, and I got very jealous. I was very jealous because I didn't know how to deal with being in a committed, loving relationship, because I'd never been in one. The only one I'd ever been in was like with my grandmother and granddad, and that was so different. But how to function in a real relationship was very hard for me, very hard. And once again, we had our times. We had some very good times. So, okay, we decided we were going to get married. So we decided to go over and tell my parents. So we call them and tell them that we wanted to come over. And of course, we were not received very well at all. Actually, believe it or not, after I got married, they fell in love with my husband because, as I said, he was a loving guy. Everybody loved him. And they fell in love with him too. But that time was so broken with us, me and my parents, that I got married in my preacher's house, Reverend Charles. I had gone to Evergreen Baptist Church ever since I was young. I had taught Sunday school with little kids when I was a teenager. I had gone to Bible camps and all of that, vacation Bible school. I was always involved in that. So we asked him if he'd marry us. Well, we got married in his house. And here's a picture of that if you want to see it. It's me in my little hat. Can you believe getting married in a little hat? But anyway, that's a picture of me. But my stepdad and my little sister, who was 8 years younger than me, Mary Ruth, attended my wedding. My mother did not come. She refused to go. And that, once again, created such turmoil in my life. Once again, total rejection. And it was extremely hard for me to deal with. So we got married, and we moved into the little basement apartment. No, we moved into a trailer. Yeah, we were in a trailer. And God, that trailer was hot. And I wasn't working at that time, and he would get up and go to work, and I did all the homely things, keeping the house and cooking and all of that. And we settled into married life. But even then, there were signs. There were signs even then, because he loved to drink. And what we did is we would go to other airmen's homes, and they loved to play pinochle. They played pinochle all the time. They would play all night long, one game right behind the other. And us wives would sit around and talk. So I got introduced into the life of being an airman's wife through the wives that I interacted with. And I met some really nice ones. I really did. I really, really enjoyed being with them. And it made it much easier for me. And we had times that were just so fun, so much fun. And then there were times when it was extremely hard because, as I said, I did not trust anything or anyone. I had not learned to trust. And he was very good to me. He was good to me. He just didn't know how to be a husband. And I remember one night, they were all playing pinochle. And I remember the night we got married. It was April the 22nd. We went out to eat. And when we walked into a restaurant, there were a bunch of his friends, airman friends, sitting at a table, which of course we walked over to say hello. And my husband introduced me. I want y'all to meet my wife. And one airman looked up and said, "You're lying. There ain't no way you got married. You will never get married. Man, you're too much of a playboy." Oh my gosh. So these are some of the things that I had to deal with early on. And once again, being as insecure as I was already, that just put it in my brain once again that I was not worthy. Why is he with me? And that interfered in our relationship a great deal, along with the fact that this guy, unfortunately, he was, when I met him, my husband was an alcoholic. He loved to drink. He drank all the time. And later on you'll hear about that, but in the beginning, that's what he did. We'd go to the Sandman, he'd drink, he would get drunk. We'd go over to play pinochle, they would sit around, he'd get drunk. And so these are the things and I grew up with 7 uncles and 2 aunts, and the majority of them were alcoholics. And I remember as a teenager saying, you know what, I will never be like that. I will never drink like that. And of course, guess what? I ended up becoming an alcoholic because that's what I saw when I was growing up. That's what I married, was someone who just drank all the time. And it was extremely difficult. It was very difficult settling into married life. And once again, 38 years, you can only imagine the roller coaster ride that we were on. And pretty soon, not only alcohol was involved, pretty soon, not only did he drink, but I started drinking, and then the drugs came into play. So, yeah, it's an interesting story. It's a story that probably could be made into a movie. But I'm doing my little videos here for you, and hoping that this will maybe open some people's eyes, or who knows? Who knows? Anyway, I didn't know then what storms we'd weather, what love we'd build or destroy. All that I knew was that I had stepped out of one situation and straight into the arms of chaos and passion and of kind of love that doesn't come with a manual. But it would take years before I would understand the cost that it cost me in my lifetime and what I had to endure in order to find the Gloria that sits here in front of you now. So I hope y'all come back next week. And for any of those that want to buy me a cup of coffee, the link will be down below. Please subscribe to this channel and join me next Thursday for what, chapter 9? I love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.